Oh my God. So all Dandavat Pranams, we are so grateful to have you here and welcome to everyone. Hi, Helen. Hi, everyone from Jordan's crew who are coming in. Hi, Whitney. Hi, everybody. I'm just calling them out because I can see you guys, and it's really nice to be here with everybody, and we're happy to be live with Jordan. Jordan Bain is a certified senior Kabbalah teacher, healer, senior teacher and Kabbalah instructor with the Modern Mysteries School, an ancient tradition in the Western Mysteries in the direct lineage of King Solomon. Got to call these good things out because these are powerful traditions. Since the age of 15, he's explored many traditions and forms of spirituality and healing, including different types of meditation, yoga, Reiki, shamanism, esoteric and hermetic studies, many kinds of energy healing, which we very much appreciate that you do, and Kabbalah and much more. Jordan's focus is to hand down the essential keys and tools that are missing from our modern lives. His mission is to empower humanity with the mysteries, to open the doorways of wisdom beyond words and thoughts, to lift the veil and see true reality without the filters of the ego. Amen. From this empowerment place, human beings make better decisions, have more joy, seek their answers within, and find true peace and fulfillment of their life's purpose. Jordan, welcome to the Bridge Builders Ascension series.
Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, we're so happy. And we just, started doing this recently when this thing happened that we all know what this thing we're in. So we're just going to get going and roll right in.
Sounds great.
We were talking earlier, and just for our crew, someone was so awesome to write in and say, we're so happy you have Jordan on us. And I was saying, yes, we've known Jordan. I had met Jordan, over a decade ago for sure. Mm-hmm. And what I remember from our meeting was just your humility and your beauty and your sweetness. And I love when that God and goddess energy merge in a human being. And all the awakening that's happening right now is so vital. Mm-hmm. It's also very confusing for many folks. And I know we're going to get into that. So perhaps I'll just say this. I'll start with this so we can understand a little bit about you. Tell us a little bit about who or what or when you had your aha awakening moments in your life, those times where you butted up against a dark night of the soul or something in the world that was just begging you to dive into your lineage that you went into, that you teach in the Modern Mystery School and just in your life. The who, what, and when that helped push you into sharing the wisdom you do.
I think, like for many people who have been on a spiritual path for a long time, it's rather than any one specific event for most people, it's really like an ongoing series of discoveries. And some of them perhaps early on really seem just like synchronicities, coincidences. Things are happening in our lives and it's like we're being led or guided to something that's much greater than ourselves and much greater than what even we've maybe seen in stories or what we've read about or seen in movies or fairy tales. But and I'm blessed to be able to say that because I, live an amazing life. And so when I was 11, I had hypnosis for the first time, and that really awakened me to the existence of an inner world beyond just like when you're asleep at night and dreaming. I always had a very active dream life as a child. And when people asked me what I wanted to do when I grew up, I said I wanted to be a wizard. And they told me I'd grow out of it. And I said I didn't think that would happen.
I don't think so.
But the world gets to us, and by age 11 I didn't really believe in that stuff so much, and so having medical hypnosis for a really minor medical condition at that time, which resolved as a result of the hypnosis, what really shook me about it was that I could have an inner experience. The most basic thing that we take for granted, like now in the year 2020, there's so many people who are doing meditation or doing guided journeys or shamanism, or there's so many avenues and doorways into having an inner experience of ourselves and the universe, right? But then this was 1991, and that wasn't around. I mean, there were no yoga studios. There was no, maybe there was like one in New York City or one in Los Angeles or something like that. But Reiki practitioners had not even, as far as I'm aware, ever come to Boston at that point. Or if they were, there was no discussion of them in the collective consciousness. People didn't even really know much about meditation at that time. So I had this experience that showed me I could have an inner, like that my inner world was real, basically. And that led to more and more investigation into that through meditation and guided visualization and, you know, staring at candle flames and, you know, staring at mandalas like the beautiful one you have on the wall behind you. Just discovering more and more of my inner self and doing that instead of my homework in high school, coming home and meditating for hours. And that continued to lead me down many different roads until in college I studied Reiki and shamanic healing and started to really take this seriously as something that I would want to do professionally. And went through many dark nights of the soul thinking that that would never be possible. This wasn't something that anyone did. So I studied pre-med and I was going to go to massage school and maybe I was going to go become a chiropractor just to put what I felt about how I was supposed to help people, try and fit it into some kind of box and say, you know, what are the boxes in society that this could fit into? I mean, massage therapists are healers. They help people. And chiropractors are healers and they help people. And maybe I'll be an acupuncturist and maybe I'll help people that way. But I would never really be able to help people just through spirituality and connection. And I knew I didn't want to be, you know, a minister or a priest. That wasn't really, technically I am an ordained minister in like 3 different spiritual traditions, but not in a traditional religious sense. So I knew that there was something out there, but it wasn't anything that I could find or see. And I just kept searching. So I studied a lot of different traditions. And then eventually that one thing led to another. And I was guided to the mystery school that I study in now, which is called the Modern Mystery School at this time. And that lineage goes back over 3,000 years to King Solomon's time. And then before that, you know, into prehistory, basically. And it's a tradition that is taught in person. So it's handed down teacher to student rather than something that you learn from a book primarily. I mean, there's many books that have been written by mystery school initiates throughout the ages. But as far as I'm aware, there's never even really been a book written about the mystery school because you can't really write a book about the mystery school. It's not because it's so mysterious. Like I give presentations, and that's not what this interview is, but just about, I give presentations like live and you know, in person at my office where I am right now. Obviously, we're not like doing gatherings right now because of the current situation and circumstances. And I can tell people in just an hour or two all about the different paths of initiation and the different subjects of study, but that's not the point. The point is your experience. And so the mystery school is one of those bridges and one of those gateways for people to find themselves, to find more of their true essence and express that in the world, do something positive with it. You know, just like in the traditions that you and Kabbalah have studied, and it's all about the inner self. And there's many roads to experience the inner self. So that's a little bit of what led me here without getting boring about it.
Oh, I'm so glad I asked. That's so wonderful. I mean, there are so many people right now who are being initiated into their own awakening, being initiated into their own mysteries and their magic, you know? So, you know, I understand that trying to fit it all into a box, you know, do I write books, but what does that mean? I have a yoga school. I teach people to be teachers. What does that mean? And now we have this soul mapping matrix course to kind of bring some context to that which you cannot actually necessarily bring context to, except if we're all in alignment to the awakening together. So that helps me realize what my next question is for you. I have been, as everyone is, online and bringing in information and gathering the tribe and gathering the love, but there is a tremendous amount of confusion out there right now.
Yeah.
Without considering ourselves any specific authority, because we know that, you know, if truth is one, could you tell us a little bit about your experience out in the world right now, seeing, hearing, and feeling the information that's being shared, and how maybe you're filtering through that yourself and then how you're helping people, and what we talked about, the true power, what to do in crisis, how you're helping people filter and come into alignment with their mysteries and magic through all that information.
Yeah, that's really, I think, the question of the day for a lot of people. You know, how do we make sense of all of the different inputs that we're receiving right now, with everyone, much more available for information online? And yet, are we really more available because so many people are in either a fear or a trauma response, or they're in an overload setting, emotionally? So people are not necessarily doing so well emotionally right now. And when you're not doing well emotionally, the higher parts of your brain kind of shut down, and you can't really take in information and evaluate it logically. So to be able to come at a situation like what we have today from a balanced, healthy perspective is way harder than you think it would be, because it's not just about how much information you've read online. I spend lots of time these days reading information online, and yet how much of that really helps me? I can get a lot of different perspectives. I can see a lot of different things. I can, by seeing many different perspectives, I mean, this is one level of truth, but by seeing, whatever we want to label as a liberal or a conservative or a conspiracy theory or a mainstream media source or whatever we think is going on, by seeing all these different news sources, I can sort of triangulate what the truth might be on a human level. And yet that doesn't really bring me closer to myself. It might bring me closer to, do I think there's something I really need to call a representative, like a congressperson or a senator, on and say, is there something I, somehow that I as a citizen can contribute to in a minor way, or sign a petition or something like that. But that, in Hermetic traditions and in the mysteries, that's not really our power. Our power doesn't really lie in, do I have a lot of information? Do I know a lot of things? Have I read a lot of different perspectives? That informs something about who we are, or something about how we manifest as humans, but that's not our essence. So, and yet we teach in every spiritual tradition I've ever studied in, Eastern, Western, shamanic, esoteric, magical traditions, it's not about, do you know something? Do you not know something? Do I have the right information? Do you have the right information? But it's about knowing yourself. And what is the self? The self goes, is infinite. Who we are is ultimately, at its core, we can know it to a certain extent, but as humans, the core of who we are isn't even knowable. We know it, and then we reach a limitation in a human body of knowing ourselves. And then we have to go beyond just our physical body to know our soul, and we have to go beyond our soul to know our spirit, at least within Kabbalistic traditions, talking about soul and spirit as different levels of our true nature. And when we look at the confusion of so many different conflicting viewpoints that are going on right now, we were talking about this before the show, we see a lot of different opinions. And some of those opinions are maybe really well informed, they come from a lot of research, they come from a lot of science. There's been a lot of studies on something, and we've gathered a lot of information, but information, knowledge are not really the same as understanding and wisdom. And the wisdom is when you know really how to apply it, when you have real understanding of it, you can put it in context of yourself, and you've gone through enough experiences that you know how that fits in with who you really are as an eternal being. And when you can scan the information that you're reading or seeing videos on or listening to podcasts about, however you're gathering your information, if you still read physical newspaper, I don't imagine a lot of people listening to this do that, but maybe you still get the newspaper. However you get your information, it's not fully processed, maybe is the way to say it, until you relate it to yourself. What does it mean to you? How is it benefiting your life? How is it related to the collective consciousness? Because you are one unit in that collective consciousness. When I read something about someone else or another group or another country, I need to look at myself. How am I considering them? That other person over there, what, I was reading something yesterday about how there's food shortages in Italy, and the country's been locked down longer than most parts of the US, and now people in grocery stores are like fighting over food and stealing things, and there's like police presence at every grocery store, and that's obviously a horrible situation. And like, what does that mean to me? How do I, there's so many different responses that I have to that. There's the response of like, oh my God, that's horrible, that's outrageous, how could that happen in a developed industrialized nation? Who is responsible for that? What do I think about the people who are doing that? What do I think about the police presence? What do I think about the governmental response? What are the causes that led to that? And there's so many things I can consider there. And then all my emotional states of like, how do I feel about that? And oh my God, that would be so horrible to be in that situation. And then the compassion of like, well, how could I help that situation in some way? Is there a charity I could donate money to? Do I just need to raise awareness of this? Like, there's so many things that we are being asked to process right now. And what do we do with all of that? So, I think when people are in overwhelm, they tend to not make the best choices. So one of the things that I hope that people can take away from anything we talk about tonight is to use any and every tool that you have available to you to get into your center and to get grounded and come out of overwhelm into a more balanced perspective on life.
Amen. That's beautiful. When we were speaking earlier, you said, oh, I want to hear from you guys too. And so I'm only going to respond in this way because, you and I have been teaching for quite a long time, actually, and doing private work for a long time. Yeah. And you have a school and I have a school. And we have friends and family and beloveds and all of the humanity and the pets and all the whole thing. One thing that I gather whenever I speak with a bridge builder, even if they're out of, the Vaishnav line, which, when you have a spiritual lineage, there has to be those lions. We have those lions, Kalánidhi and I, that are very clear and strong and powerful. Yeah. They are who we take association from. They are who are in some ways direct descendants or descendants of the descendants of the descendants. We call it servants of the servants of the servants, right? Mm-hmm. And that is so vital. But the individual process right now, the individual awakening is part of a collective awakening. Mm-hmm. And that collective is so expansive. The atmosphere, I was going to say the galaxies, all of the bubbles in our bubble map, as we call it, in the simplest of ways, are tuning to each other and talking to each other and collectively connecting on these, ethics and morality, but above that, these high vibrational attunements to our soul. Mm-hmm. So in soul mapping matrix, which is it's really actually the most simplified, except and yet expansive product I can give right now while we're not seeing each other, while we're not in school, while we're not in session, right? And what you just spoke to is medicine tools. And the second realm of meditate, after you figure out all your awareness around all the horrible feelings and the pain and the shadow and the, what your crisis and transformation is, you go to your core desire, which you spoke about, and then you make a choice. And then in that second realm, you go into your medicine tools, which will eventually include your team. And then you can start radiating abundance and practice magic and serve, share, and repeat at the end. You just go back, right? So it's a cycle. So what is it about your tradition and the modern mystery school and the hermetics and the alchemy of that allows folks to go deeper than the basics of meditation? Because this whole thing is calling for something deeper. Yeah. And I just want to hear from you as a wisdom keeper, like just calling it out there, how do we go beyond just, I am the middle of me, but there's all the people I need to connect to and all the souls I need to connect to. What are some of your medicine tools?
That's a great question. I mean, it's in this time, because we can't really do very much in person in terms of gatherings, and so much of what we teach is for serious tools is Kabbalah, like higher level programs like healers academies, like the Ritual Master program. These are gatherings over 10 people, you know, and in Massachusetts, that's the limit right now. You can't gather more than 10 people. And in a lot of states, you can't gather more than 2 people right now, although that's reopening is happening. But, you know, being able to teach and to share really powerful tools isn't something that is easy to do right now. So the tools that I would normally say are really essential for a person's life, you know, in the mystery school is the core is a path of initiation to be able to connect much more with the true essence of the soul and the eternal self, the spirit, who we really are. Being able when someone is initiated in the mystery school tradition, it opens certain gates of the soul for the soul to flow into the physical body, into our physical life, and to make a much bigger impact in our physical life, rather than being something that we think is there or we hope is there. Maybe we have faith that the soul is there, and yet the soul is not where we tend to operate from 24 hours a day. The path of initiation opens those gates to start a process of an individual not only realizing their soul and having a vision and experience of who they are on that soul level, but to touch it more and more frequently, and eventually embody it, and eventually be their soul and let it be the thing that's governing their life, and then to go beyond that into their eternal self and their spirit. So there's this multi-stage process. Once you've attained that soul awareness and essence and been able to anchor that in your life, then going to an even higher level as an eternal being. That sounds nice. I mean, who on a spiritual path wouldn't want to do something like that? And yet it's really difficult to do that sort of work. It's not a walk in the park. It's not you know, hang out and just eat ice cream together. It's not feel some negative emotions and then, you know, do some positive affirmations and you're going to be through it. Like, you know, people go through their learning as initiates much faster than they did before they were initiated, but there's no way to get around the laws of your human being with lessons to learn, with gifts to share. There's like, time is of the essence here. We don't have forever in a physical body. And if you came here with a mission and you're however many years old, whether you're 15 years old or 65 years old, like, you only have so many years here. We don't know how long we have. And then, you know, this mission and this purpose in this life is over eventually. And we go on into eternity, of course, but, you know, there is something to being here as Jordan, as JaiShree, in this body at this time. And it's our kind of mandate to learn that and live that, not because of your tradition or my tradition or Reiki tradition or whatever tradition you're part of, but just by being human, breathing, being alive. Like, there's something you need to be doing with this life that's much bigger. So that all of our tools aim at that. You know, Kabbalah is all about that, like actually taking a journey through the tree of life from start to finish. You know, we take about 10 or 11 months to do that. And when you climb through the tree of life over those 10 or 11 months, you spend about a month in every major archetype studying yourself through a particular kind of lens. Like, you put a magnifying glass over your life in that area, and you start with your body, because here you are in a body. And then you go into like the dream world and the astral world, and then you go into the intellectual world, and then the emotional world, and then into the world of the soul, and then up into the guardians of the soul, like the pairs of opposites and mercy and severity. And then you go into knowledge, and then primal mother father opposites, like divine masculine and feminine, and then into source, into your own source. And in going into your own source, you have a vision of yourself that resets your whole DNA, it resets your whole blueprint, so that you can never go back to your old life. And people usually take many months after that 10-month journey to even begin to realize what's happened for them. But that's our sort of single biggest journey that's accessible to most people, in terms of that I see, like, pretty much anyone from any walk of life can come in and take that kind of a journey in their lives. There's higher trainings in the mystery school, like the Ritual Master program, that are really more specialized and are really not for everybody. But the Kabbalah journey that we do is like our one of our biggest tools for regular transformation, and something people can do many times and dive into the knowledge of themselves as an eternal being. And every time they go through that journey, reclaim a major portion of their eternal self and bring it into their life. And it changes everything. It's like Jordan 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, like it's a completely different operating system. And we need a whole new operating system on the planet. And
yes.
In Hermetics, we have the first Hermetic principle is everything is mind. And the second Hermetic principle is correspondence, as above, so below, as within, so without. And if we're going to have a different world, we need to change what's on the inside. How do we change what's on the inside? There's a million ways to do it. One of the biggest ways that we do it in the mystery school is working with the tree of life, which is this thing on the wall behind me. And the Kabbalah is the system that we use to climb through that tree of life.
So fun. So good. Is this so fun? There's so much Shakti power in this and love in this conversation. It's very exciting. It's always exciting to hear another wisdom keeper speak to this very, like the tree of life, this big arc, this big journey that actually, yes, any soul can go through. We say the same thing about yoga, of course, because it's about the soul. And there are different, we say a chincha beta, a beta tattva. It's like literally the first line in our yoga school, the soul culture yoga school, which is unusual because it's kind of deep, but it means it's a both and world. It means everything is one, but also separate. So how to cultivate that wide of an understanding, you have to go like really deep, really specific within ourselves.
Yeah.
Okay. So ready? Now that we've talked a little bit about that, not that I want to get controversial, I don't. Maybe a little. No. How do we then, so we can talk about yoga, we can talk about the mystery school, Kabbalah, we can talk about archetypes. This is all real. But for the layman right now, which is also all of us, for those younger souls who have not been doing this that many times, meaning who are younger souls, or have not had the awakening since they were little like you have not had the astral traveling and the moments of reincarnation that we have been having since babyhood. Right now, there is an opportunity to uplevel, to transform tremendously. It is why you and I are here talking, even though we've known each other, even though we're connected in all these ways. The uplevel and power of transformation is actually in some ways immediate, but it's being filtered through all this information as you speak to because of all the timelines converging, etc. What is your experience being in the real world and bringing it to a universal language, like as you spoke to before, around empathy, compassion, and yet transcendence, or going beyond just what you see or hear or feel as information? How do we make all that happen at the same time if we don't have a modern mystery school or Kabbalah or Vaishnavism or yoga? Or I'm just asking.
Yeah.
How do we do it?
When you ask that question, something that comes to mind for me, JaiShree, is, last October I was out in New Mexico at just for a few days, and my wife and I were hiking in a national monument called Bandelier National Monument, just north of I don't know what it is, maybe like 50 miles north of Santa Fe, and it was inhabited by indigenous peoples probably for I think the estimates are about 1,000 years, maybe longer. Not a large group, maybe 500 people at its peak lived there. It's it's one of those cliff dwelling monuments. So there's like caves carved into the soft rock there, and then there's stuff that's built up, like different little houses and what remains of those houses. It's actually really well preserved, or well excavated. I don't know what it looked like 50 years ago before it was excavated. So we went there and we spent the afternoon there, and I spent a lot of time meditating. It was super peaceful. And I, meditating in one of the caves, looking out over the valley, there's a little stream that runs through it. It's obviously a very dry desert region, but there's like a lot of trees like near the water. And I was really taken with the energies of all the different ancestors of that land that came to share and to speak with me about their vision and about what's going on right now. And so this is obviously before the current crisis. This is like before anything even most likely had leaked in Wuhan, which some people are saying was maybe like mid-October of last year. So this is like literally right before that started. And I spent a while with this energy and with this reverie or this communication with all the ancestors of the land there. And they were communicating to me that no matter what happens right now, within the next really like not even 200 years, we're going to have a completely different world. Like a completely different world. We're going to have maybe something that most people of our age and generation, like I'm going to be 40 this year. There's different spiritual teachings that beings that we would call like the indigos started coming in late 70s, early 80s. And then by the middle of the 1980s, almost everyone being born on the planet was of a kind of like a different source energy than our parents' generation, right? And so now that's like the majority of people on the planet. And something that I find with most indigos is like this vision of a better world where we can bring science and technology and nature and healthy living and natural medicine and spirituality and a positive, non-intrusive, benevolent governance of ourselves, and that all these things can come together, that we can grow our food in healthier ways, that we can treat our bodies and the environment in better ways, that we can live, we don't need to go live like cavemen to live healthy lives. We don't have to go backwards in time to some utopian fantasy of how we lived 10,000 years ago before civilization in order to have a clean, healthy world that works for everybody. And so we call that vision in the mystery school Shambhala. And there's many different ways to call that. You could call it like true world peace based on inner peace. You could call it like a true utopian society. And yet this vision or understanding of Shambhala comes from, within that, what we teach in the mystery school is like, it's going to be everyone's perspective. It's not just going to be your perspective on what that means. It's not just going to be my perspective on what that means. We've never had this on the planet before, where everyone is living in an empowered state, knowing themselves, having all the basics in life totally taken care of. I don't mean people don't work, or that there's not money, or that there's not exchange of information and goods and all that. Like I'm not talking about some sort of fantasy like that. I'm talking about a world that can only be built from the inside out at its core. We can't build something like Shambhala through governmental policies. We can't build Shambhala through better economics. We can't build Shambhala through political activism. We can't build Shambhala through simply doing better farming practices. Like, none of the results of Shambhala come about because of themselves. Like, they're the results. The causes of Shambhala are all internal. So if we want to stimulate the unfolding of a world that's like that, we need to do a whole lot of work on ourselves. Yes. And then we get to see the results of it. Then we get to see the fruits of it. It's not the other way around. And, for a long time, different people, futurists and people writing about the environment and people writing about human affairs have pointed out, we've had technology and science and policy understanding of how could we build a world like that. But the problem is that people aren't there inside themselves to do it. And, so the result of people not being there inside themselves to do it is that we sort of bump up against the reality that we all want that and we all need that, but no one really knows how to create it internally, because I can only create my part of it internally. You can only create your part of it internally. And then, well, that's great. We got 2 people who've created their part of it internally. What about the other 7.5 billion people? and so our job as light workers, healers, magicians, mystics, whatever we want to call ourselves, torchbearers, like it doesn't matter what we call ourselves, like our job is to help other people create that for themselves. What does that mean? I don't know what it means for them. I take 50 students through the tree of life. I don't know what it's going to mean for their life, but I know that their life's going to be better as a result of going through it. When I teach someone meditation and they actually practice it, their life's going to be better because they did meditation. And we're going through a weird time right now on the planet as well, because there's many forces of that aren't even really of the government. They aren't of individuals, but maybe forces that people don't like to think about or talk about, that would like to move us into a world that's not really about it's a world of world peace, right? We're going to put that in quotes, but it's not a world where each individual really gets to express themselves. It's a world where people are there's the masses, and the masses are provided for, and the masses are governed, and that it's tricky, because that's like a one world government, right? And in Shambhala, we'll probably also have a one world government, but it's not going to be a one world government that controls people.
Right.
That's way outside the scope of what humans are truly ready for right now, at least as far as I can tell from my perspective. Like I don't see people taking even personal responsibility for their health,
right?
Much less for their government. We're still far away. I wish we weren't far away, but as far as I can tell, we're still far away. So as a light worker, my job is to keep waking people up to themselves.
To themselves. Oh, that's, it's, thank you for sharing that and that story. It's so real. You've spoken to so many highlights around the torque, the thing inside that twists, because it's a spectrum. Mm-hmm. On one hand, we say we cannot just align with some would call it classical sciences, mm-hmm. The empirical sciences, because they all came at the root to support and help individuals in their journey. But there is a time where they get turned and become about controlling that individuality. Mm-hmm. For example.
Right. And because they're run by people who don't know themselves.
Because they're run by people who don't know themselves.
And that's what we come back to, is like, how do we get to a place where we have all the really amazing, positive, good things that have to do with science and technology and government and finance and all these aspects of that can be helpful about human life, but right now we tend to not see them used in a positive way. We tend to see those things really distorted, and so some people might just want to walk away from those structures, but we need some kind of structure in order to operate the planet, or to operate our lives. Like, I don't just get up in the morning and hope that there's food to eat, or hope that there's clean clothes. Like, that requires my input. That happens on a society-wide scale. So we need ways of organizing ourselves, but those systems need to be run by people, and the people in those systems need to be enlightened and awakened, and they need to know themselves. And you can't force awakening. You can't force enlightenment. No. It has to be a natural process.
You can shine a light on it, though.
Yeah, we can speed it up.
Shine a light on. Mm-hmm. This tribe, I call it a council. I actually believe there's this majestic council that is forming right now. And some could say that what we're speaking to, what we're attempting to shine a light on and bring language and landscape to, is the same desire and belief system, and then systems in general that bring governance, bring community. Yes, but in perhaps every turn of millennia or whatever, there has to be a shift, and everything has to crumble down to go back up. There is one way to look at it, though, one central line that folks don't want to accept, which is that we do not want to be uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. We don't seem to want to accept that there is, on the other side of the spectrum of what's awesome and holy and beautiful and comfortable, a very, very decaying lack of individual body of governance or control that is, as you say, not about individual art, individual science, individual alchemy, individual mastery, individual mysticism.
Mm-hmm.
So folks don't seem to want to accept the spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems my problem is how do I be on, so I come to this and on Facebook, I will shine a light on something that seems possibly out of my scope, whether it's like I offering possibly a video or a new bill that's being passed, and I'm trying to shine a light on the spectrum of how far this is potentially going to where we lose our individual, mystical power, and that we are becoming a one world idea or governance, that there is no such thing. We have to stay as individuals with freedoms and rights. But a lot of folks can't see it. They cannot see from A to B. And A is very painful to look at and not comfortable. So I guess my wish is that somehow the way showers and the gatekeepers and the light workers and the mystics can shine a light on that without it being so painful that no one can move forward.
Right.
And I don't know, as you say, how that's going to happen, except to talk about it, except to feel, except to be in it for a moment and recognize I don't know everything. And there are emotions on the spectrum that I haven't even felt yet.
Yeah.
Maybe that's how you can see Italy losing, or whatever, wherever people are losing freedom and rights and comforts, to look at that from here and say, oh, I don't just feel bad for it. Oh, I don't just judge it. Oh, I don't just hate it. How am I part of it?
Mm-hmm.
And how can I be part of it in my consciousness?
Yeah. And we don't really have power until we have awareness.
We do not have power until we have awareness. I highly agree.
We have subconscious power that we're always creators all the time. And yet, if we want to truly be empowered, it needs to be conscious. We need to know and have awareness of what's happening in the world, what's happening in myself. But I talk with students about this throughout this crisis, and it's like we can't just, in my personal perspective and in teachings that I've received, you can't just hide and not have any awareness of what's going on around you. Because part of our true power as human beings is to take one energy on one end of the spectrum and transform it into another energy on the other end of the spectrum, and continually move the energy back and forth between the different ends of the spectrum. And eventually we find what's in the middle of that. We find our center, we find who we are. But we can't just, head down, not aware, I'm not sure what's going on around me right now, and I hope that someone else is going to take care of it. That's not that's not growing up. That's not trying to be insulting to anyone, but that's acting like a child. A child expects, one of the things that we use to define a child, other than its physical size and age, is that it doesn't have full responsibility yet for itself, right? And as spiritual adults, as human beings, we need to grow up and have full responsibility for, well, the world is the way it is, as you beautifully said, and I'm paraphrasing again, but it is one of the core teachings from all traditions I've ever studied. The world is the way it is because of me. The world doesn't, we're not going to change the current situation if we don't change how we are inside ourselves. And yes, time and external forces are always moving. So if you do nothing in this current crisis that we're in now, the world will eventually move into something else. But what will it move into? Will you have had a conscious role in creating what we're moving into, or will you have been more in the child role of someone else made that decision for you? And in Kabbalah, in that state that we talk about in mystery school teachings, everyone is a spiritual adult. Everyone needs to eventually grow up into that place where they're taking the responsibility for the world is the way it is because of me. And that's really different This is where it could get really tricky for the ego. That's really different than blaming yourself. Oh, well, I created COVID, right? That's not what we're talking about here.
Thank you. Oh, there you're back. You paused for a minute. Yes, it's okay. You paused for a minute. Okay. So we were saying that we can't, after we can't put our heads down and we come up, we have to say it starts with me and I'm responsible.
Yeah.
And it was the last moment of what you were saying. So, but you're inspiring me. I just want to say you're inspiring me. That we can't be children. We all have to be spiritual adults.
Yeah. Yeah. And the tricky part with that is that that could be easy to fall into, of saying the world is the way it is because of me, is like, well, I caused COVID, right? That's sort of like the negative ego's conclusion. Like I created all the negative things that have ever happened to me. And it's like, maybe not. Maybe there's many other forces that go on to create negative things. And there's other forces that go on to create positive things. But in general, our individual consciousness stacks up with all the other units of individual consciousness on the planet. And we have power as individuals and as a collective. And so what we are doing has an influence on the collective. And what the collective desires becomes the reality.
Yes.
So I'll say that again. So what the collective desires, whatever it might be, whatever the energies are that the collective is filled with from all the individuals put together on the whole planet, that becomes what gets acted out on the planet. And so it's a little more nuanced than just like, oh, well, it's just me and the world is the way. No, it's like, it's me and you and everyone listening to this call and everyone on the entire planet. It all adds up to something. And then we all share that reality together.
Right. Yes.
That might not be a reality that every individual even wants to live on or in, but yet we're bound to it because we live on this planet. So, the best that I hope for as a light worker is to have as many people as possible and as high vibration as possible at all times, as much as possible, so that we create better realities.
Yes, that's the tribe. Yeah. That is the idea. And it is not going to take just a few of us. Right. And just, I have so much compassion and empathy for all of us, because on one end you have someone thinking, and I'm just using this as an example, the same life or planet, the same world, and one person thinks, because I'm responsible, my job is to wear a mask constantly everywhere I go, outside in the fresh air, no matter who's around at all times. While this person is thinking, my job, no matter what is happening, is to not be a jerk to the person who chooses or not chooses to wear a mask. Now, I'm shining a light on that because right now there's just an example of the two spectrums. I'm quite sure that if we can tap into whichever is the higher positive possible mood, energy of that, then maybe we are individually tapping into that collective higher reality. And it's not about being right or wrong. It's really about what you say, core desire. All the soul mappers, all the matrix people right now are, that's the map, because after you realize your awareness, you have to, this is simplified for all of what we're saying. After awareness, you go into core desire. You shine the light from the shadow to the light. What do we really want? Right. What do I really want? And that is to be free, and that is to be empowered, and that is to be beautiful, and that is to have a delicious exchange of money, of barter, of agriculture, of everything. So, okay, I'm going to give you the last word because it is 5:55 now. 5:56.
That's crazy. That went so fast.
I know, that's so fast. There's so much more we could say. You're the last everything.
I think in this kind of a time when we could go in so many different directions. Ultimately, I see like huge energy, light, beauty happening as a result overall, like a huge net positive coming out of the crisis that we're in right now. And some people might say, well, you're living in a developed country. Of course, like it's going to be better for you guys than it is in some place in a developing country. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And that's in Shambhala, whenever that comes, in several hundred years or more, whatever it takes to get there, maybe things will be more balanced on the planet. And I wish that things were more balanced on the planet. So privilege aside of living in a developed country and having a huge, beautiful, sunny office to teach from with the internet and like getting to speak with beautiful people all over the world with this. Yeah, aside from all that, I see huge light coming out of this, and the ability of all of us to make a contribution to that, again, depends on our awareness, depends on our connection to knowing ourselves as who we really are as eternal beings. And we talked earlier about using tools, like meditation's an essential tool and Kabbalah is an essential tool, and I've used many different tools. Initiation, you guys use many of your own tools like soul mapping and much more. Yoga is an essential tool. Like we need some kind of system, whatever we choose, to be able to take the journey from where we are now to where we'd like to go. And like you said yourself, we have to set that goal. We have to set that desire. What do you see for yourself coming out of this? What do you see for humanity coming out of this? I'm holding that vision of just my personal vision, and it's not here to override anyone else's vision, but I hope that everyone wakes up to natural health. I hope that, there's so many things that can be done for natural health that if everyone on the planet knew what they were, there would be no COVID crisis. There would be no, like, I'm not going to say that literally, this is how bad the censorship is. I can't actually even say those names in this video, or this video will get taken off the internet.
That's right. That's correct.
There's been like 40,000 videos deleted every week for the last several weeks from YouTube. So rather than getting this video deleted, I'll just say they exist, and you can do your research, and people are going to talk about those things in code, and there's nothing to be scared of for 99.999% of people if they really have the information about natural health. So one of my core desires for humanity, and my own healing journey has involved this for sure, is being naturally healthy. I'm talking about physical stuff and foods and supplements and exercise and so many different things that go into that. That comes from the core of knowing who I am, loving myself enough to desire to take care of myself enough to do that. Because if I have like a lot of self-loathing or low self-worth, or I'm angry at myself, or I haven't forgiven myself, or I have things in my life that are unresolved within me psychologically and emotionally, it's going to make it much harder to take care of myself, right? There's been research that, if I think statistically, I might misquote this, so these are not exact numbers, but I think by the age of 55, people who have reported that they have major issues with both of their parents emotionally have a 100% incidence of like major, like life-threatening disease. And people who have like major issues with one or more of their parents have like way more than a 50% chance. Like if they had a good relationship with dad, but their relationship with mom was really, difficult or challenging for them, and they haven't resolved that by the time they're in their mid-50s, they still have a very high percentage chance of having a major disease. And so long before we ever get to major disease as human beings, like in my Shambhala, and I hope that other people might share that vision, that's up to them if they do, we resolve these things psychologically, and we learn to treat ourselves with love and dignity and royalty and self-worth to take good care of our bodies, because our bodies need to be healthy in order to live in a world that's ascending in frequency. You can't bring a lot of light into an unhealthy body very easily. I mean, you can, but it's tough. And so if your body's not healthy, now's a great time to to learn everything you can about how to be healthy. And there's so many resources on the internet. There's so many books, there's so many videos, there's so many alternative practitioners now. If you want to know, you can find out. Like that is a huge blessing of the internet right now. So educate yourself, find out, and educate other people about it, because the level of censorship is astronomical right now. Whoever is running mainstream media doesn't really want people to be healthy. I have to come out and say it. Like there's some sort of agenda for people not to be healthy.
That's right.
And so
that means victory.
Yeah, defeat that agenda by learning to become healthy. And then when COVID comes to your doorstep, you'll never even notice.
No.
And there's exceptions to that. This is like, I have to say these disclaimers. I'm not a doctor, etc.
Not a doctor either.
Yeah, but I've seen many interviews with doctors who are treating people, who are having 100% cure rates with very simple natural nutraceutical, non-pharmaceutical interventions. They're simple pharmaceutical interventions. the whole concept of like, we're in this together, we can get through this together. I'm like, yeah, we could have been through this in like 2 weeks with the right information. And instead we're 2 months into it, and most states, like half the states in the US, are still in lockdown, and the US is less locked down than most other countries. I mean, there's exceptions like, South Korea and Sweden and stuff like that, and there's countries that are reopening like Italy and Spain, but I mean, yeah.
You are truly inspiring, Jordan, and I can safely say that I'm inspired to go back into some of the conversations that I've been having, continue to practice my awareness of how much, I will say it, what I have to offer of connecting the dots, that I won't shy away from educating myself. And I will continue to work with educating others without that level of fear and judgment. And you have just been such a light to speak to. I'm only ending it because we said an hour.
Right. People aren't going to listen if it's 5 hours long.
I will say this. There are very few social media platforms that I would direct people to. I would like to say that I have enjoyed your social media platforms that you've been sharing, because you've been shining a light in a very beautiful way, in a very non-judgmental way. Thank you, Tom, for saying hi, for bringing awareness and then shifting it to core desire. And I highly have enjoyed your sharings. And I can't often say that, because you're really bringing a beautiful way of connecting. And yes, other people that Jordan and I both like and listen to are really speaking truth to power. And I'm sure there are many more. And nobody has to choose one way over another. Just that we are saying, let's choose. And that's what I hear you saying, from core desire, from love, from that Shambhala place. It's absolutely beautiful. I wish we could go on, but we're going to say namaste, we love you, and all the beautiful blessings to everybody. Sorry I don't look very well at the camera, but I'm looking at Jordan, and I will try to do better with that in the future. Here I am. Thank you, Jordan. We love you. Modern Mystery School, and just you being you is the work. So all blessings.
Thanks for having me. It's been awesome and so much fun, and love you a lot. Thank you all for watching. Love you as well. And share this if you liked it and you want other people to, learn more about this kind of stuff. So hope you have a
share it.
Thing.
Share it. And YouTube, JaiShree Yoga. And are you on YouTube, Jordan?
Yeah, but I don't use my channel a lot right now. So the Facebook page, Healing Boston, is easy. I will put some of the snippets when we chop this up in a little snippet. I will put some of those on YouTube.
Perfect. And we're going to be sharing this on JaiShree Yoga YouTube, and we're going to be sharing it on Jordan's page, Facebook, and we're going to make it as accessible to everyone as possible. And as Jordan says, please share it, because that's the only way it happens. We just got to be like in our power, as he says, and share. Yeah. Okay, thank you so much.
Everyone, have a great night.
You too. I'm going to press.
Just my Shri.